Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into the 7 handguns that should never make their way into your concealed carry rotation or home defense setup. These are firearms that fall short in reliability, effectiveness, and safety, and in some cases, all three. The goal here isn't to trash these guns just for the sake of it, but to steer you clear of bad choices and point you toward better alternatives. Let's kick things off with number 7 on the list, the Braverman Stinger pen gun. Sure, it has that Cold War-era spy vibe, and it looks like something Q would have handed to James Bond, but when it comes to defending your life, this thing is more gimmick than gun. It's been chambered in a handful of underpowered rounds like 22 Magnum, 25 ACP, 32 ACP, and 380 ACP, and none of them are well suited for serious self-defense, especially when fired from a single-shot pen-shaped device. To be completely honest, I wouldn't stake my life on this thing. It's a novelty at best and an expensive one at that. You'll see it going for close to $1,000 in collector circles. From a practical standpoint, it's pretty useless. The loading process is slow and awkward. You've got to break it open, slide in a single round, replace the cap, and hope the trigger mechanism behaves, which it often doesn't. The safety is primitive and the trigger is anything but intuitive. It's not quite as dreadful as the Cop Derringer's trigger, but it's close. I remember hitting the range with Cal from Optics Planet and trying to get a clean shot at 15 yards. It felt like a miracle just to land one hit. The design is clumsy, and under stress, it would be easy to drop or fumble. And let's be real, at contact distance, a blade would be more effective than a low-caliber, single-shot pen gun. It's a collector's oddity, not a viable self-defense tool. Moving on to number 6. The Taurus PT-22. This pistol gave me problems straight out of the box. It's basically a cut-rate version of the Beretta Tomcat, but Taurus's execution just doesn't hold up. The tip-up barrel sounds like a good idea in theory, but in the real world, it's finicky, unreliable, and awkward in practice. The materials feel cheap, and the fit and finish are all over the place. Even when it works, you're stuck with an 8-round magazine loaded with 22 long rifle. Now, I love plinking with 22, but for personal protection. That's a tough sell, especially when the gun's reliability is already questionable. Sure, the price tag might look tempting, around $200, but a heavy trigger, poor sights, and frequent malfunctions make this a hard pass. If you're shopping in this price range, you're better off picking up a Ruger LCP in 380 ACP. It's compact, far more dependable, and actually worth carrying. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Bond Arms Honeybee. Now, I'll give them credit for solid build quality. Bond Arms does make sturdy guns, but the Honeybee is a swing and a miss for concealed carry. It's a Derringer-style pistol chambered in 22 long rifle, and it only holds 2 shots. The kicker? It's about the same size as a Glock 26. That's a lot of bulk for very little firepower. Accuracy is another big problem. Even from just 5 yards out, I struggle to stay on target. The lack of a rear sight and the primitive front sight don't help. On top of that, the break-action design points the muzzle back toward your face during reloading, which is just bad ergonomics and potentially dangerous. Being single action only adds more delay when you need to act quickly. The 2-shot capacity, the underpowered caliber, the clunky reload process, it all adds up to a gun that looks cool but fails hard in the real world. And let's not forget, rimfire cartridges like 22 long rifle are inherently less reliable than centerfire rounds. Now, if you want a Derringer-style handgun in a beefier caliber like 9mm or 45 ACP, be prepared for brutal recoil and even worse usability. Unless you're buying the Honeybee just because it looks slick or you're a fan of old Western movies like The Quick and the Dead, skip it. It's a range toy or a collector's novelty at best. Not something I'd ever trust for defense. Coming in at number 4, let's talk about the Gerson 2311. A gun that looked great on paper but turned out to be a real letdown in the real world. This is a double-stack 1911 style handgun chambered in 9mm, priced around $700. When I first heard about it, I thought, finally, a budget-friendly 2011 platform. But once I put rounds through it, the illusion quickly fell apart. What you're left with is a low-grade 1911 clone that doesn't even meet the standards of its price tag. Throughout our testing, it ran into repeated failures to feed and extract. It felt rough and unrefined. The red dot optic that shipped with it? That came loose and failed entirely. The mounting screws weren't even properly torqued. And for a 9mm, it kicked harder than expected. That tells me the recoil spring was poorly matched to the slide and barrel. It felt like no one at the factory test fired this thing with a full magazine before boxing it up. The trigger pull was the biggest disappointment. You'd expect a 1911 style pistol to come with a crisp, light break. That's one of the platform's best traits. But this one had a gritty single action pull right around 8 pounds. That totally defeats the purpose of running a 1911. To make matters worse, the magazines had a habit of randomly ejecting midstring and spent brass ejected wildly, including several cases smacking me directly in the face. This pistol was a direct from the manufacturer review sample, too, which makes you wonder how rough the retail units must be. Bottom line, the Gerson 2311 looks like it could be a contender, but it misses the mark in execution. If you've got a few extra $100 to spend, look at something from Live Free Armory. Their entry-level double-stack 1911s are light years ahead in terms of quality and reliability. Now, sliding into the number 3 spot is something truly bizarre, the standard manufacturing Thunderstruck Volley Fire. This is a revolver that fires 2 rounds of .22 Magnum simultaneously, and yes, it's as ridiculous as it sounds. The idea is kind of interesting. 2 barrels, a unique trigger system, and a volley-style shot. But in practice, it's a complete mess. Build quality is substandard. The sights are little more than decorative bumps. The trigger design, which mimics a Glock-style safety tab, is laughably out of place. It's by far the worst trigger I've ever dealt with. It requires a massive amount of force to pull, and it doesn't matter if the safety is on or off, the function is equally clunky. The ergonomics force your hand into a weird grip, and when you finally manage to squeeze the trigger, both barrels fire at once. The recoil from twin .22 Magnum rounds is enough to make the gun bounce out of your hand, and yes, that actually happened to me during a test session. Technically, you get 8 rounds, but really you only have 4 shots before needing to reload. And with how miserable the shooting experience is, you're probably not even making it through the cylinder. The design is flawed, the reliability is suspect, and the usefulness is nearly zero. You'd be better served with a Walther WMP, which is more accurate, more comfortable, and infinitely more functional. And now, just shy of the number 1 worst handgun, at number 2, we've got what I call the paper gangster gun, the infamous Intratec TC22. This is a low-budget rimfire version of the TC9, and it's about as bad as you'd expect. Sure, it looks cool in that 1990s mall ninja kind of way, especially with those banana-shaped 30 and 35-round magazines, but functionality? Practically non-existent. This thing jams constantly. It has no real feed ramp, so every attempt to chamber a round feels like a gamble. You might get 1 shot off, maybe before you're clearing a failure to feed. I picked mine up for just under $200, and even at that price, I felt robbed. After cleaning it, oiling it, and trying every brand of .22 long rifle ammo I could find, it still choked every other round. The side-mounted safety lever is awkward and not at all intuitive, and the charging handle feels like an afterthought. The magazines promise high capacity but fail to deliver. It's a miracle if you can get through more than 2 shots without a malfunction. And the size? Massive. For something that unreliable and underpowered, the footprint makes 0 sense. Honestly, you get more performance out of a Hi-Point C9, and I don't say that lightly. If you're even remotely considering picking up a TC22, do yourself a favor and don't. It's all flash and no substance, a classic example of form over function, and not in a good way. And taking the number 1 spot on this list, without a doubt the worst handgun I've ever laid my hands on, is the Altio pistol. This thing is what happens when you combine the firing mechanics of a flintlock musket with the aesthetics of a cheap cigarette lighter from the 1980s. If someone set out to deliberately design the most unusable firearm on the market, they absolutely nailed it here. We're talking about a single-shot 9mm handgun that operates using a clunky breech loading system and a bizarre trigger that feels more like you're stretching a rubber band than firing a weapon. Just getting the thing ready to shoot is a hassle, slow, awkward, and anything but intuitive. Once you do manage to pull the trigger, there's a good chance the gun will leap out of your hand, thanks to zero effort being put into recoil control. The Altier weighs less than 8 ounces and is built entirely out of plastic. Not polymer, I mean literal plastic. There's virtually no texture to hold on to, no ergonomics to speak of, and the sights are just molded lumps on the slide. You'd probably do just as well aiming with your eyes closed. And that trigger? It's laughable, a stretch-to-fire design that lacks any sort of precision or predictability. On top of that, the safety didn't even function on my test model. That's a scary thing to realize when you're holding a cartridge that can generate tens of thousands of pounds per square inch of pressure. To top it all off, the recoil out of this tiny frame is absurd. I've put rounds through a .44 Magnum and even a Desert Eagle chambered in .50 Action Express, and neither of those felt as uncomfortable as this thing does. It's genuinely nerve-wracking to shoot, as every squeeze of that stretchy trigger has you bracing for a part's failure or worse. When I say this gun is useless, I mean it in every category. It's not good for concealed carry, it's not suitable for range fun, and it's absolutely not reliable enough to trust for any sort of defensive scenario. It's not even a good novelty, it's more of a how not to build a firearm case study. If any of you have had the misfortune of shooting one of these, or if you've come across something even more dysfunctional than the Altier, let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to hear the horror stories. But if you're just shopping around for a backup gun or something budget-friendly, do yourself a favor and stay far away from this disaster. If you found this list helpful or entertaining, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you back here for the next deep dive.